Hello, everyone, and welcome to CE Chat. We are graciously hosted by the Cloud OnAir team, who hosts these amazing weekly webinars, so definitely make sure you tune into Cloud OnAir every week. My name is Nick Orloff, and I'm a customer engineer at Google Cloud, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to have one of the rock star product managers of Google, Prajakta Joshi. Prajakta, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. I work in cloud networking. I'm a product manager there. I work on several networking products, including load balancing, CDN, and others, but most interested to be here today to talk to you about Cloud Armor.
Yeah, absolutely. Security is always top of mind for every one of our customers, whether you are a small startup or a massive enterprise. Security is absolutely foundational to your success as a business. And one of the unique things that Google brings to our customers is that Google is a tried and true player in this market, and we obviously see these kinds of security threats, vulnerabilities from end to end. And so our approach to security, since we've done this before, is to absolutely trust nothing. That's really how everything can be boiled down.
That's right.
And the way that we approach security is a very defense in depth manner. So rather than just protecting the perimeter, we really protect all edges of this, all layers of the security stack. So whether that means using our custom-built hardware that's in our data centers to IAM security permissions for your end users, security keys, encryption keys, we really make sure that your data that is being sent to Google Cloud is being protected end to end. And today I'm really excited because we get to talk about the subjects of the application and the network itself, because those are very, very critical components. So Prajakta, can you run us through some of that?
Sure, happy to. So as Nick mentioned, at Google, one of the first things that we do is we trust nothing, and which means that you have to secure everything in the stack. And as we start talking about network security, it is very critical to secure every path, every resource, and every access that can happen when you're actually running your services inside Google Cloud or even on-prem, accessing it from elsewhere and so on. Now, if you look here, what you notice is that there are several paths. First of all, you have your VPCs in Google Cloud, and you would typically use a firewall. So these are our distributed firewalls that run on the host. If you're connecting, let's say from on-prem, or even if you're accessing any of the Google services, such as Google Cloud Storage, BigQuery, and so on, there is another feature called VPC Service Controls, which helps you with access control to that. But one of the areas that is typically of concern to almost everyone who's delivering internet-facing services is how to mitigate and defend against denial of service attacks, and how to protect your internet-facing applications from getting attacked, or even just from unauthorized access as well. So
absolutely.
Most of what we are going to talk about today is related to that. And that's where, first of all, our network and some of the other products, including Cloud Armor, come in the picture.
Great, I'm excited.
So, the other day, we were talking about the denial of service attacks. And a good way to essentially slice these denial of service attacks is think of them as being in separate buckets. The first one is the infrastructure DDoS attacks. So this is where an attacker will try and send you huge volumes of traffic and will try and overwhelm your application. So examples include TCP SYN floods, DNS, NTP, and other amplification attacks, things such as IP fragmentation attacks, and so on. These literally require tons and tons of bandwidth to mitigate. Now, there's another more sophisticated form of attacks, which are called application-aware attacks. These not necessarily depend on volume, but they depend on being aware of the application and then exploiting the weakness of the application. So examples would be slow low-risk, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and so on. And then the last one would be a lot of these attackers are very sophisticated, and they're essentially combining multiple types of attacks. And then that's what we call the multivector attack.
I love that Google is protecting not only the infrastructure itself, but also the applications. Would you mind going into just real briefly what cross-site scripting and SQL injection are?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, the attacker depends on knowing something about the application. In both cases, the attacker is trying to inject some malicious code, and making that code execute, because that's a weakness in the application. So, for example, in case of SQL injection, the attacker is trying to take the flow of the SQL and trying to execute queries against the database. So imagine dumping out the whole database for the attacker. That's what you would do in SQL injection. In case of cross-site scripting, similar, but you're essentially injecting malicious code and making your browser execute a set of things against the application. So imagine bypassing access controls, knobs, and so on. So that's what you would do with cross-site scripting.
Definitely a threat.
For sure. So as we started thinking about, as we had our own services, so we started off with search, and there's YouTube, and there's Gmail. We have about 7 billion user plus services, and we definitely get attacked a lot. So one of the first things that we did as we put these services in place is to also build out the infrastructure to go defend these services against denial of service attacks. Now, if you look at the graph on the screen, this is a statistic that is gathered from all of the attacks that have been seen on Google's own services. A few interesting things I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
If you notice, the graph is already in TBPS. And traditionally, you've seen these graphs in MBPS. So these attacks have already surpassed and gone into the TBPS territory. So internally, we have updated all our graphs to be TBPS driven. The same increase can be seen along packets per second and some of the other metrics as well. The second thing, actually, do you want to add something?
Oh, I was just going to comment that it's absolutely incredible that things are scaling up so quickly now that the predominance of these attacks are really growing in scale. So
that's true.
It's incredible.
That's true. And in fact, Damien, who's one of our DDoS defense leads, he gave me this really interesting statistic. He said, what does a big DDoS attack feel like or look like, or how much bandwidth does it require? And he said, imagine it's like basically requiring the bandwidth needed to watch 500,000 YouTube videos at the same time in HD. So it is massive amount of bandwidth that is needed on the provider side to go absorb these attacks and also defend the services against these attacks as well.
Yeah, if you're a startup or really any size company, I could see how trying to play millions or 500,000 YouTube videos simultaneously would bring down your network.
That's true. That's true. So a lot of times when the customers are onboarding into GCP, the first question they have is, what are the kind of protections that are there, or what are the products and solutions that are there to help defend their internet-facing services? Think of them as being in two categories. The first is the set of products that we ourselves provide. The first one being the global network. We will talk about it a bit more. There's the global load balancer. We have Cloud CDN. And then Cloud Armor, which is a product we launched in March. We also have an interesting product called Identity Aware Proxy, which we will talk about soon as well. And a very interesting one along with all of this is Project Shield, which is essentially our pro bono service. Uses the same infrastructure, but it's used for defending journalists and other folks who essentially are voicing opinions that would likely be suppressed. And that's why they're getting DDoSed. So they get basically shielded under Project Shield. We also have several partners who provide capabilities for DDoS defense. You can see some of them listed on the screen. We have a lot more. So the whole idea is to give you an arsenal of tools that you can actually use to go and build really comprehensive protection for your internet-facing services. So let's maybe walk through each of these and dissect them a little bit more.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you will typically hear from customers who are Google Cloud customers is the biggest reason they chose Google Cloud is its network. And when you look at this diagram, this is essentially showing you Google's network. If you look at all of the blobs with numbers in it, those are our regions. And then the numbers in it are the number of zones in that region. So that's where you'd put your compute or your storage. Some of the things that you mentioned when you were talking about defense and depth, that entire stack is secured when you're deploying things in here. The second interesting bit in here is all of those blue lines. So that's essentially our network. This is our backbone. These are cables, could be undersea, could be terrestrial. The dark gray dots that you see are our POPs. And so the POPs are where your customers come and terminate their traffic. And then from there, they are connected to the data centers, the regions and zones that you see, using those blue lines. So those are our cables, undersea, terrestrial, and so on. One of the interesting bits that I also like to tell is Our network is also shark-proof. So this is an actual picture of, so when we looked at those blue lines, that's actually one of those cables.
One of the undersea cables?
And it looks like the shark was hungry, but luckily there was no downtime on any of the services being served there. So it is actually a pretty phenomenal network, and it is also one of the big differentiators as to why customers come to Google Cloud. So having this, huge global network, that's the reason we can deliver all of the services that then go and secure your services as well.
Awesome.
So we spoke about the infrastructure. One of the first things that customers who come to Google Cloud do is turn on the global load balancer. Now, if you think of traditional load balancing, which is essentially whether it's self-managed or delivered by third parties, that would reside inside the data center because you're running it as managed VMs or you're running it as managed containers. One of the nice things about our global load balancing is it is not essentially delivered through VMs or through containers, but it's this massive globally distributed infrastructure that sits at the edge of our network. And so anytime you put the global load balancer in front of your backends, which is instances or storage that's sitting inside our data centers, you're essentially stopping the attackers, or you're stopping the malicious traffic right at the edge of the network, and you're preventing that from consuming bandwidth all the way to your backends. Of course, this is the same infrastructure that, again, defends Google's own services. So it is battle tested over the last decade or more. And the last thing I wanted to mention is Google is a big believer in TLS everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so generally we encourage all of our customers to use TLS. So you use HTTPS for non-HTTP traffic. We have other flavors of load balancers that will support it. But that is one of the big things where we've always been a big proponent of TLS everywhere. We introduced several new features to help make that easy. So things such as SSL policies, multiple certs. We don't charge anything extra for TLS. So it is a huge driver for you to go and deploy your services with encryption turned on.
That's awesome. And I know that performance is very critical to Google. And so one of the amazing things that customers like about our load balancer solution is that there's absolutely no pre-roaming required. Basically, we scale with you as your traffic scales up.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I mean, the reason we can do all of these is these are just architected to be massively distributed systems, and they benefit from economies of scale as well.
Absolutely.
So given that these can handle YouTube worth of traffic or search worth of traffic, it is very easy for us to also provide the same scale or even the same high availability to the customers that actually go and use this.
Cool.
Which brings us to the main topic for today, which is Cloud Armor. So we spoke about the network and we spoke about the global load balancer as being your first line of defense, including against volumetric and protocol attacks, so your infrastructure DDoS defense. When we provided these two, we used to often hear from our customers, so is there a way for me to go put a blacklist or a whitelist? Or can I go control access to my service if it's coming from a certain geo? Can I go drop that traffic? Or can you help me put some sort of WAF rules? As we started hearing more and more of those requests, that is how this product Cloud Armor was born. We also used to hear from our partners about the requirement for something like this. We'll deep dive into that. So again, when we say whether it's the global load balancer or Cloud Armor, the infrastructure that is used to deliver these products has existed for decade or more. And what we give you is a way to go and orchestrate this infrastructure so you can use it to protect your own services. So it's a really good combination where you have Google's global network, you have the cloud load balancer, and then Cloud Armor is a service that today is supported with HTTPS load balancer, will be supported with other services as well. So the other key thing is it is basically defense at scale, which means you don't have to worry about how many queries per second this Cloud Armor thing can support, because the thing itself is so distributed that it will scale up based on your traffic. So you don't have to worry about the HA of Cloud Armor itself. And then the last thing we wanted to build is essentially a policy-driven framework. So build a very robust policy-driven framework that then you can go build on to deliver security policies or block certain type of things, or even build your own custom rules and so on. So that in a nutshell is Cloud Armor. One of the things that I also mentioned briefly is that it works with the global HTTPS load balancer. So that's what you can see in here, which means that the infrastructure DDoS defense is taken care of by the global HTTPS load balancer. And then several of the other capabilities that we spoke about will be taken care of by Cloud Armor. But one of the things I thought is, it's one thing to talk about Cloud Armor. Why don't we go show it in action? Should we do that?
Let's do that. I'm excited.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our demo on denial of service. Today we are going to show how a top retailer defends against denial of service attack. Today is Black Friday and we have some excellent deals on our website. And we have a number of shoppers who are up early in the morning to shop on our website. The boxes represent our happy shoppers across the globe, and they're shopping on our website and buying products. Now, if you look at this one, this is essentially our shopping app, and the baskets essentially are servicing all of the transactions that are coming in. You can see the lovely boxes floating in across the globe, coming into our service, and you can see a bunch of happy shoppers who've got some really great deals. There's a thing. This is also a prime opportunity for an attacker to go launch an infrastructure DDoS attack. Look at the screen. You can see some really happy shoppers shopping. But with infrastructure DDoS attack, the attacker sends in tons and tons of traffic trying to overwhelm our shopping service. And in fact, if you look at some of the largest attacks that we've seen at Google, you can see that they're increasing exponentially in volume. And in fact, if you looked at all of these attacks, they are like watching 500,000 YouTube videos all at the same time in high definition. Look at those attack packets coming in. They would have totally overwhelmed our shopping service, and our shoppers would not be able to shop at all. But we were prepared for this. Prior to Black Friday, we had deployed Google Global Load Balancing. You can see the beautiful blue ring. This is Google's global infrastructure that's protecting our shopping app and making sure that all of our customers can shop happily. You can see that all the infrastructure DDoS attacks are mitigated, and we have some happy shoppers. However, infrastructure DDoS attacks are not the only attacks you're going to see. James?
One of the other more common application level attacks that we encounter is known as SQL Injection. Now, here in this picture, you can see the happy packets coming in and fulfilling orders, but a SQL injection, once that begins, it is problematic for two important reasons. Important reason number one, we have a DDoS attack where it's trying to actually deny service, but more importantly, in these types of attacks, your data could potentially also be at risk. So coming back here to our big screen, you can see the happy packets coming in, but you can see here the SQL injection attacks coming in and interfering with the orders on my servers as they're going through here. Now, both volumetric and SQL injection attacks are things that we can plan for when we design our application. So today, we're happy to announce Cloud Armor. Cloud Armor has SQL injection rules that allow us to deploy in advance. When this is deployed, we can go out and mitigate these types of attacks before they ever endanger our application. Both volumetric attacks and SQL injection attacks are ones that we can plan for when we design our application. There are more sophisticated attacks that require a reactive approach. One of these we're going to demonstrate is going to be a multivector attack.
So multi-vector attacks are very interesting. You have attackers who use one or more or even multiple types of attacks to try and overwhelm your service. So let's look at our service. You can see that with our Black Friday shoppers, we have the legitimate traffic, but we also have malicious traffic that has some interesting characteristics. Look at the bottom half of the screen. What you notice in the tiny island in the ocean is a botnet attack. Now, this attack has three interesting characteristics. First, it is originating from that small island. Second, the traffic that's coming in has this really specific signature inside the packet in the traffic. And the third thing is that it's coming in from a specific type of browser. We can do something really useful with this one. We talked about Cloud Armor, which provides you application level defense. It also is underpinned by a very sophisticated rules language that lets you build custom rules. And so what we are going to do now to make sure our apps stay good is to build a custom rule. So when we deploy the custom rule, what's going to happen is that CloudArmor is going to look for a specific pattern, which is the specific signature, the specific browser, and then also ensuring that this is only traffic coming from that specific island. This way you ensure that none of your legitimate traffic is blocked out, but your attackers are. So here we launched the CloudArmor custom rule. You can notice that the botnet attack has been easily mitigated against. Everything looks good. Our shopping app is happy, and most importantly, our users are happy. We had an excellent Black Friday. We've made tons of profit. We are now going to go ship all of those products to our happy shoppers. And with all of that, we introduced you to two interesting products, the Global Load Balancer and CloudArmor. And we have an arsenal of other products from our partners. So with all of these products, we hope you build a comprehensive solution, happy shopping, and happy keeping up your services up and running. Thank you.
And we are back to being live. Well, Prajakta, thanks so much for showing that video. I think it gave a really good high-level understanding of how CloudArmor works. And I think it demonstrated how relevant this product is. As you saw in the example, the retailer who basically has to deliver a bunch of products on Black Friday, and we all know that Black Friday can be one of the most critical days of the year for pulling in revenue, was able to protect their services using CloudArmor. So whether you're a retailer or whether you're a gaming company or what have you, I can definitely see that this would be applicable. So very exciting. Now, Prajakta, can we go into some of the nuts and bolts of how the policies work?
I knew you would ask that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. So as you rightly pointed out, first of all, it is critical for all customers, whether you're a retailer, gaming customer, and so on. But what I wanted to do next was to give a little bit of a peek under the hood and explain how is it that the framework is built out, and especially explain by what we mean as policy-driven defense or policy-driven DDoS defense.
Absolutely.
So the way CloudArmor is laid out is as a set of policies. If you look at this policy as an example, the name of the policy, there are 3 policies in there. You can probably read the 3 policies in there. Now, when you think of a policy, think of it as a hierarchy of rules. If you look on the right-hand side, you can notice that there is a set of rules. At the end is always a default rule. Each rule itself is comprised of a match condition or a set of match conditions. And then you'll have some actions that you'll take on that as well. And then you can take this CloudArmor policy and you can go and connect it or attach it to one or more of your services. So the moment you do that, that's when CloudArmor kicks in for your services. You could choose to have a custom policy per service, or you could essentially go and put the same policy across all of your services. So it's up to you.
Interesting.
This is a closer look at what's inside a CloudArmor rule. So we spoke about the policy being comprised of rule. Inside the rule, essentially, you have a match condition, and this could have either one match condition or there could be a set of match conditions. Once the traffic matches this signature, you obviously want to tell us what you want to do with the traffic. So, it could be a variety of actions in there as well. You also want to tell us where this rule should be inserted inside the hierarchy. So that is what the priority tells you. Preview is again another interesting feature where if you enable preview, then whatever action would have been taken essentially gets logged, but the CloudArmor doesn't actually take that action. Oh,
that's great. You can actually see what's going to happen.
Exactly. And imagine you want to try out a rule. So that is when you would go and configure it in the preview mode.
Okay.
We wanted to pick a framework for specifying these rules using something that will be open source as well as something that's in use by some of our other security products. And that is why we picked what is called the Common Expressions Language Cell. It is hosted on GitHub, so you can actually take a closer look at it as well. But the entire specification of CloudArmor rules is done using that. And Firebase customers, if you're an existing Firebase customer, you've probably already used it as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions actually.
Sure.
So first being, I see that the actions either allow or deny, which is a little bit binary. And I imagine that some customers would be interested in something like throttling or rate limiting. Is that something that you guys are considering in product management?
Yes, that's a great question. So today you can do allow, deny. You can also specify the codes with deny, and we are actively working on adding rate limiting as well.
Awesome. I know some of my customers are going to be excited to hear that.
I think it's a pretty useful feature for a lot of customers.
Cool. And then I also wanted to ask, for the common expression language, how complex is that? Is that something that anyone can just get going from the get-go, or does it involve some training, some complexity?
Actually, it is fairly straightforward, very intuitive to use. And we are also publishing in the CloudArmor documentation the rules for what you typically want to do. Having said that, it has a lot of features, which actually, let me show you what's in there.
Okay, cool.
So let's take a closer look at that. When you think of CloudArmor rules language, the first thing is what are the things to look for inside the traffic? And to specify those, you typically want to look at IP addresses, whether they are v4 or v6. The HTTP headers, for example, you may want to look at the geolocation of the client. So each of these that you see essentially is looking at those specific things inside the traffic.
Okay.
That would be your attribute or your set of attributes. The second thing you typically want to do is combine one or more attributes, and that's where the operators kick in. So imagine this IP address and not that geo. So that's where you use the operator and also not. And then the last thing is we have a very sophisticated set of operations. So for example, actually it's not listed here, but you can even do things such as regular expressions. You can do is lower, you can do uppers. So there's a whole set of operations that you can do to build out really rich rules. And which ones of these you use depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So that's roughly what it looks like. It's fairly human readable. We will provide you an editor inside our UI, so our Pantheon UI. And if you want to automate it, you have the gcloud CLI and API as well.
Great.
So, and then, as time goes by, we'll try and give you as many pre-canned rules as we can, so you don't really have to even look at the language if you choose not to.
Love it. Cool.
So let's run through some of the use cases that drove creation of CloudArmor. The most popular use case that we initially started with was essentially blacklist and whitelist for your traffic. In this example, our customer wants to only allow, let's say, traffic from 9990/24. So you would put a rule which looks for that IP, and then you would put whatever action it is that you want to take. This could be either allow, this could be deny, or you could also turn it on in the preview mode as well. This is supported both for IPv4 and IPv6 because our global load balancer supports IPv6 clients as well. And then this could typically, very likely in many cases, this specific condition could be combined with other conditions as well. One of the most popular usage of this specific feature is if you're using a third-party service or you're using one of our partner services, and let's say you're scrubbing your traffic through the partner. Without this feature, even if you scrub the traffic through the partner, you need something at the edge of our network which says only allow traffic in from the partner and deny all other traffic that's not scrubbed through their partner. So this is where you would also leverage the whitelist feature, and that's one of the most popular use cases for this one.
Okay.
The other popular one is geo-based access control. So you want to bring in essentially traffic from certain geos and block from other geos. This is where, again, you would use CloudArmor with checking for the region code, which checks for the geo. You don't have to worry about the IPs and so on. You just specify the code, which is the ISO Alpha 2 code. So in this case, it's using region code as US. So it takes away a whole lot of toil from your end in mapping any IPs to geo. You just use geo directly. The third one, which is again another popular use case, is customers asking for WAF-like functionality, more specifically for defense against application-aware attacks, things such as cross-site scripting or SQL injection that we spoke about. And we have pre-canned rules for it. So you don't need to worry about how to craft the defense for it. As you can see, it's a single rule, which in this case is for SQL injection. And there's a similar rule for cross-site scripting, and then we'll continue to add to this rule set. So you don't have to worry about crafting these rules on your end. The fourth one is what you saw before when we did the nice Black Friday demo. In this case, what you're essentially doing is taking a set of parameters and you're crafting your own custom rules. These could be for day zero attacks. These could be for customized access for your services. And we have several partners who are actually using this to build out their own products as well. So there are several use cases for this language. And in this case, it's looking for traffic that's originating from US, where the user agent contains bad bot, and also the cookie is a specific value, and it's likely going to drop that traffic.
Awesome. Yeah, that's always on everyone's mind is how do we prevent zero-day attacks? And that is something very difficult to accomplish. So I'm glad that Google's gotten into it.
Yeah, this is actually building out the framework. The whole thing is anytime you want to defend against an attack, you need to be able to craft these really custom signatures. And to do that, first of all, you need a very flexible language where you can express what it is that you want to block. So this actually goes a long way in doing that.
Awesome.
One of the things is when you actually do all of this, you do want to make sure that you're able to see what is blocked or what is allowed. And we show these via stack driver logs. So if you zoomed in on this one, what it's doing is this was essentially an SQL injection attack that was blocked. And it is telling you that the action taken was deny. It tells you what policy was matched. It also tells you the priority, which basically maps to the rule that blocked it. And then it also gives a string, which is denied by security policy, which gives you some more additional details about the block itself. So this is very critical because a lot of customers would want to see what is blocked and what is allowed, and then also to see that the policies are working as intended. The last one is actually a very interesting use case. And we have another product called Identity Aware Proxy. And that will essentially work with user identities and will tell you if the traffic is authenticated. So can they access a service or not? So it's basically identity-based access control. The nice thing is that it works with the HTTPS load balancer. And so you can use it in conjunction with Cloud Armor. So imagine you wanted to say something to the effect of only let the traffic in if, let's say, the user is coming from US and the user is authenticated or has been, it's allowed to access the service based on identity. And that is when you would turn on both Cloud Armor and Identity Aware Proxy. And it gives you a really rich set of, again, rules that you can deploy to see what kind of access control you want to do. So you can layer on, like think of it as the stack, right? You've got layer 3, layer 4, layer 7. And with Identity Aware Proxy working in conjunction with Cloud Armor, you have a layer X on top, which is essentially identity. So it's a very powerful stack that you have at your disposal.
Yeah, I can definitely see how this would be incredibly applicable for companies that might have employees who are going on the road or getting into airplanes, traveling, et cetera. Because it'd be really difficult to say, all right, this employee only accept their IP address when they're in California, but when they go on a sales trip, it'd be difficult to kind of change the rules automatically. So the combination of Cloud Armor plus Identity Aware Proxy just makes it incredibly powerful. That's cool.
True. That's true.
So I hear you have a demo for us.
So yeah, because I knew you'd ask me a question, so I have it ready. So what I wanted to do is we showed you what it looks like from a customer's perspective using the Black Friday example. We showed you some of the constructs that actually make up Cloud Armor. What I wanted to show you is a demo and then also show you a little bit of the configuration or under the hood. So I thought we should let's pick the 3 typical attacks that we can expect customers to be worried about.
Okay.
And so let's go back in here. Okay. So the first one essentially is DDoS attack. Now, in this case, the way we have set it up is we have 2 projects. One is the attacker project, one is the defender project. In the attacker project, and we have set up this tool called Metasploit and some of our own homegrown systems to go launch attacks. The other side in the defender project is where we'll go and configure a set of things to defend against the attacks. So the first one is an infrastructure DDoS attack. Now let's go to the defense side. If you notice the red thing, that is basically your attack traffic, and you can see that you can see that line go up.
And these are real data points, not anything funny?
Yeah, and I'll show you the stuff behind the hood.
That's cool.
Now, if you look at this one, if you look in here, all we need to do for this one is turn on the global HTTPS load balancer.
Okay.
That's all this command does. So when I click it, you can notice that the load balancer got deployed, and you can see that the line is essentially going down, which means our attack traffic is going down. It's now almost mitigated. The second attack, if you remember, we spoke about was SQL injection. Now, again, this is using the tool. This is not as much about volume, but essentially just exploiting the SQL set of traffic and then injecting your malicious stuff in there.
Okay.
So again, Metasploit generates an SQL injection attack. And on the defense side, this is where Cloud Armor kicks in. So when we click that button, what it's going to deploy is a security policy, which is turning on essentially the SQL injection defense. So let's turn that on. And you can notice that the attack traffic has gone down. The last one is the one that we spoke about earlier, which is the multivector attack. So you could have either infrastructure in this, or you could have different types of attacks within a single attack or from a single entity. And let's launch this attack in here. Let's assume that this attack, the signature of the attack is traffic coming in from US with user agent bad bot and then a specific type of cookie. So we would put in a rule that actually does these three things, looks for these three things, and it denies the traffic. Okay. So again, the red is the attacker traffic. And when I deny this, you can see that the attack traffic is going down. So the attack is mitigated. And just to show that this is all real, let me show you the project that sits behind this. So this is the Defender side of things. Mm-hmm. These are our stack driver logs. So when you look in here, you can see what is getting logged in here. And then, basically what happened, etc. So this is where you look at those logs that we spoke about. And then the actual configuration would be somewhere in here, where if you go to the networking side of things, this is security policies is where all of these policies are actually configured. And there's a bunch of interesting stuff to do in there, especially if you start configuring rules. Mm-hmm. When we spoke about the rules language, this is the advanced mode. And this is where you'd go and use the language to create your rules.
Man,
so,
talk about real-time protection.
Yeah, so this is actually where it basically is the time where I ask you the question and I say, Nick, so what do you think of Cloud Armor?
I think it's an incredibly powerful product. It is definitely one of the amazing tools that we can put in our customers' tool belt of security protection tools. And so what I really took away was 4 key things. First being, Cloud Armor does a phenomenal job of mitigating DDoS attacks. And whether that's just a TCP SYN flood, amplification attacks, or fragmentation attacks, we really have our customers back and make sure that they're protected. Also, I love that the complex or the comprehensive rules allow you to protect on all sorts of different areas. So whether it's specific to IP address, geolocation, custom matches, L3 through L7, it's very enabling to give this to our customers and let them create and set their own rules. Also, I really like that this not only defends on the infrastructure attacks, but also application attacks, so that Google supports our customers and their applications that they're trying to run. And then lastly, what solution would exist without some kind of way of monitoring and making sure that what you've deployed is actually working? So I love that this is real time and we can enable our customers to do that.
Perfect. Cool. That's great. And so that brings us to almost the end of the presentation. We wanted to make sure you had a look at the load balancer, the network, Cloud Armor. But I think our biggest endorsements generally always come from seeing customers actually use these products and then find value in the products. And Evernote, in fact, in 2016 moved to Google Cloud. And one of the strong drivers for them was that they could not only match the security that was on-prem, but then also get several of these other constructs that they could not probably have on-prem. And they're also one of our users of Cloud Armor, and they've been using it to protect internet-facing services. So with this, we come to the end of this demo/webinar.
Yeah, but we really appreciate everyone who's been writing in those live Q&A questions. So we'll take just a second, compile those questions, and we will be back. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for writing in your questions. We really appreciate it. So, Prajakta, you're in the hot seat. Have some questions for you. First off, what types of companies are going to be interested in Cloud Armor? I
think that's a great question. And actually, the first question that we should answer. I would say any company, organization that's delivering anything that's internet facing in Google Cloud is going to be interested in Cloud Armor. One of the examples that we described was the Black Friday. So we do have a large set of retailers that are deploying Cloud Armor already, testing it out and also deploying it for production traffic. Similarly, we have a large set of gaming customers that are interested in this. We have financial customers and also several large and mid-sized enterprises, because one of the nice things is as enterprises move to the cloud, they have fast started thinking about pervasive security, and this plays into essentially securing any of their internet-facing services. So at this point, I would say almost everybody who has, I think, any plans of delivering an internet-facing service or is delivering an internet-facing services would be interested in Cloud Armor.
Awesome. Basically, everyone who has a website.
And more.
Yeah, and more.
That's true.
I also love that you mentioned Project Shield a little bit earlier. So besides just the for-profit companies, we also support nonprofits. So that's cool.
Actually, that is true. So one of the things that I probably didn't speak enough about it, but we do have Project Shield, which is essentially a pro bono service. It defends all of the journalists who are, maybe they're not in democratic nations or they're under fire for publishing posts. And we use the same Google infrastructure to actually go defend their websites, so we can actually go and continue to support freedom of speech and expression. Yeah, that's a great point.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next one. So I know that Google is very focused around machine learning and AI. For anyone who joined us at Google I/O, I think that was pretty evident. So what are Cloud Armor's strategies for incorporating ML and AI?
That's a great question again. So ML or machine learning, deep learning, these are basically embedded in Google's infrastructure at all layers. And so the things that are under the hood already incorporate machine learning and AI. One of the things that we want to do is, so what is our vision for Cloud Armor or any security system for that matter? You want to make that system more and more intelligent to a point where there is no human that's crafting rules, or essentially there is not a third party that's sitting and monitoring it to craft rules, right? At least something should be aiding them in going and doing those things. And so our vision for Cloud Armor or for a lot of our security systems is, can they become intelligent enough to predict attacks? And then can they actually go and mitigate those attacks? And there are several initiatives where these things already exist under the hood, but a lot of our focus for Cloud Armor will be actually building it out in a way that our customers can leverage it as well. So it is on our roadmap.
Cool. That is good to hear.
Yeah.
The next question is absolutely applicable. I've had a couple customers asking about it. So let's say that you're a customer, you already have a partner who's helping you with this. Can they use Cloud Armor in tandem with that partner?
Definitely. So we have several use cases. It would essentially boil down to what it is that you want, what are the capabilities that you're looking for. We have several customers who use their favorite partner, and then they combine that with, let's say, Blacklist, whitelist using Cloud Armor. They definitely leverage the DDoS, infrastructure DDoS defense that comes with global load balancing, and then they mix and match up all of these. So for instance, there might be some sophisticated or custom WAF rules that the partner has built. You can definitely use those in conjunction with Cloud Armor.
Okay. And can you share any details around performance?
Sure. So one of the things where we always do well on all of Google Cloud services is performance. And the reason for that is these are architected to be distributed systems. And so if you think of the global HTTPS load balancer, we published a blog post 2 years back where we tested it with about 1 million queries per second, which is huge. And beyond that, we stopped because that's way more than what a typical customer can expect to see. The same applies for Cloud Armor as well, because it works with the global HTTPS load balancer. And so the global HTTPS performance, again, is applicable to Cloud Armor as well.
Okay. And then one last question, real quick. Can you describe the pricing of Cloud Armor? So
the pricing will go in effect at GA. But right now, we have already published it. So it's $5 for a policy. It's $1 for a rule, irrespective of what kind of rule it is. And then it's 75 cents for 1 million queries. We will be publishing more details as we get close to the GA date.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Prajakta, huge thank you for joining us with CE Chat.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Make sure you stick around. Our next session is going to be around Cloud Composer. If you're using anything big data, any complex pipelines, you'll definitely want to tune in for that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.